Hi everyone, welcome to DOdaily Thursday, your question and answers. Apologies for that slight technical issue. I believe you couldn't hear me, but hopefully you can hear me now and we can get on with today's episode. Just before I start, I'd like to say well done to everyone who took part in yesterday's Wednesday workout challenge. Do Run in the World. It was, of course, Global Running Day, and what we try to do is, as a team, run as many miles as we can, of course, in solidarity and virtually. But I asked the guys to sort of work together, use each other to inspire each other to get out, get some miles in. We added it all up, and it came up to, with a late entry, it came up to 130 miles, which is a brilliant effort, That would have took us to the centre of London from our iconic location at Trent Bridge. So, fantastic, well done. Just what we love doing, running. Everybody, all those who took part, can't thank you enough for taking that idea on board. Got something planned for next week as well already. I'm going to work on it over the next couple of days. I'm going to announce it on Monday Motivation, so look out for that. It's a bit of a team effort, and I'm looking to sort of seed those who commit to take part. Teams of 4, and I have got a couple of prizes. Nothing major, just a few small prizes for the winning team. So if you want to take part in that, please do. Really looking forward to seeing how that one pans out next week. It should be a real good one. Again, it'll be along the same lines in terms of solidarity and virtual, but there'll be some tactics, and I'm sure it'll create great discussion around the groups and around the WhatsApp and things like that. So look out for that. Bit of a mixed bag today on the questions. Of course, last week we spoke about sort of diets and food and nutrition. Bit of a random. The questions are quite random. But that's not a problem. I ask people to ask me what they want to know. What I will say before I start is, of course, it's all my opinion. It's all my thoughts. I'm no expert in everything, in nothing really, but it's little tips and advice I've picked up, little bits of information I've read up in research. It's nothing major. If it is, there's no great science behind the answers. If it does get a bit technical, I'm fully aware that there's better people out there to answer these questions than me. Especially if it's medical and nutritional, there's people far more qualified who can answer. But I have picked up things along the way, so there's no reason I can't sort of answer them. So we'll get cracking with those. First question comes from Ben. He actually asked this before last week, and I've done a little bit of research because I wasn't actually quite sure. Having been out for a walk this week with Ben, we again discussed it, and we still wasn't sure. Socially distant, of course, but we got out on Sunday. Ben basically asked, on mixed-use paths, which side should you run or walk on, or do your activity on? So when you're out sort of running, should you be on the left? Should you be on the right? Ben tells me he tends to run on the left because he runs at the speed of a leisurely cyclist. The actual right answer to that, Ben, is to run or walk on the right-hand side. And then move into the left as you take over somebody. I was looking at a piece on the internet, and I'm going to post a link for you. It's running etiquette, the unspoken rules. Again, they're not rules as such, but the idea is to run on the right. Like I say, don't run in the middle of the path. Move out to the left, and then move back in if you're overtaking somebody. And then if the other person's using that, like I say, we was both unsure at the weekend, and I also thought it was the left-hand side until reading up. And that's what you do on closed roads. If you was on a closed road, for example, an open road, sorry, you would actually run or walk against the oncoming traffic. That's so they can see you. And of course, if you're on bends, you're not going to sort of get some cars or vehicles come up behind you and not be able to see you. Particularly, the only time that would change, sorry, would be if you was on a really sharp bend. You would move across. The advice is never to really walk in the middle of the road. You don't know how fast the traffic's going to be moving. You don't know how fast that they're going to take the bend. and whether they're going to be able to see you. So the best thing you can always do is pick a side, depending on the sharpness of the bend. Normally, if it's very sharp, it would be the side of the traffic that's behind you. But of course, stay alert and keep looking what's going on. You know, I was looking, like I said, I was looking at some of these general sort of rules of etiquette, these unspoken rules. And the rules are don't hog the road or the trail. You know, so if you're out running in a group, there might be 4, 6 of you maybe. The rule is basically to run in twos maximum on the right hand side, as close to the right hand side as you can. Don't sort of trail across in a row of 6. You know, a lot of us will have done park run and such things, and they always say before you start, the park's open to all users. So it's kind of a key thing to remember. You know, I'll remember that now at park run. Always stick to the right hand side and let people oncoming stick to their right and sort of pass you quite easily. So yeah, that's that. What they do say as well, acknowledge fellow runners. Somebody mentioned in one of the WhatsApp groups this week about people seem to have got a little bit miserable. They've stopped saying hello. They've stopped saying hi. The point is just a simple nod, just a simple sort of hello. You know, it doesn't have to be a major thing. If they do it back, that's great. You know, we're going to feel great. We're going to sort of feel great spirit, and might just pick us up a little bit. Might just give us a bit of motivation as well. If they don't do it back, there's nothing we can really do. We've done our bit. You know, but it's always nice when you acknowledge another runner or they acknowledge you. I know it works for me. You know, of course, let people know you're around. That doesn't mean yelling at the top of the voice. Yeah, you know, it could be just a simple cough. You know, just a small comment, passing runner. You know, something like that, or bite. You wear bite, but shouting too much could obviously upset the person and make them jump. And that's happened to me a few times, and it's not a comfortable experience when you run in and when there's lots of people around. Of course, we've got to be careful right now with the social distancing. So it's important to sort of make people aware. And like I say, if it's just as simple as a little cough or just a little noise, you know, we all do these little things to make people aware we're coming. If you're oncoming into someone and they're not sure which way you're going to go, just a little bit of body language, you know, it works a treat. Of course, and we know I spoke yesterday about the importance of being around people and meeting people. The one thing I'm missing now through sort of talking online and talking on Zoom, you miss that body language. I was saying to Kay earlier, I get a good feel when I'm moving my hands like this, you know, and you get a feel off other people. So body language is key as well in giving people indications of what you're going to do. Interesting one. I picked this up. Simon asked a couple of weeks ago about sort of toilet habits whilst you're out on a run. A bit of etiquette here. The rule is actually saying farts happen, which it sounds a bit grim, but basically if you're in a group or if you're passing somebody, just move out of the way slightly. You know, everybody understands it happens, but it's not very pleasant when you're around. bit of a quirky one that I didn't expect that to be there. And of course, spitting is a crucial one as well in terms of etiquette. You know, some people really hate it, really find it disgusting. Of course, when you're exercising, it can be a necessary evil sometimes. You know, it can be one of these things you need to do. So it's important to sort of, if you really have to, just don't be seen. You know, do it in your own space. Again, if you're with people, maybe drop off a little bit. You know, it's not nice to see. Nobody likes seeing it. But as a runner myself, I wouldn't say I've never done it. You know, I try not to do it as much as I can, but sometimes breathing and things like that take over. And especially when it's hot, you know, and the hay fever and such things kick in. So just be mindful. You know, we all know how to conduct ourselves, but. And of course, if you're out running, it's important to respect private property. You know, we really shouldn't be sort of encroaching on anybody's land or anything. So So again, I mentioned yesterday using Strava to pre-plan routes and other apps, so anything you can do like that in terms of etiquette and just keep sort of conducting yourself whilst you're out running. But it's quite a lot of info there. Ben basically wanted to know which side of the road, which side of the pavement to run on, and basically it should be the right-hand side. So hopefully that answers your question, Ben. We'll bear that in mind next time we're out on a long walk. Next question comes from John. Should the consumption of alcohol be stopped or reduced to improve performance whilst exercising and taking part in activity? Well, the simple answer is to that, John, and I think we all know the truth about alcohol and exercise is if you want to improve performance, then as little alcohol as possible is the best way. What I will say before I sort of get into some of the technical issues around that is lots of people run for fun. Lots of people run as a hobby or walk or do any sort of exercise. So whilst, of course, everybody knows that we shouldn't have too much alcohol. Sometimes we drink a little bit more than we should. Sometimes we do it for fun. Sometimes we do it for other reasons. But it's important to remember that, and if you're doing it on occasion, or you do it less regularly than sort of normal athletes, then you're going to be a normal sort of participant. You're going to improve your performance naturally. If you're out running every day and you don't drink, you're going to improve your performance, and that's basically because what happens is alcohol dehydrates you, first of all, and we spoke a lot about dehydration and water consumption and making sure you got the fluids on board. And basically what it does, the kidneys produce more urine, so because they're doing that, obviously one of the problems is you're going to need the toilet, but drinking too much and exercising straight after alcohol makes the dehydration and you sweat more. So you're just going to be pumping out all this fluid and not replacing it. So it's important to sort of take on that fluid anyway before you think about alcohol. But it's important to take on so much fluid. If you've got alcohol in your system and your kidneys are producing more fluid coming out, then you've got a real problem there, haven't you? You're going to need even more water. What we'll say, if you have had a drink, don't do it the night before. If you want to go on a long run on a Sunday, I'm a fine one to speak. I'm probably as guilty of it as most, and particularly whilst I'm trying to enjoy the weekends and add a bit of fun, with music and the things I do and staying at home. But I do know the rules. I've done marathons before where I've abstained for a month at a time here and there, because I know ultimately if I take the alcohol and the volume of alcohol out my diet, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to have better dehydration. And what it also does whilst you're exercising, it can interfere with the way your body makes energy. So alcohol is broken down by the liver, and when it's doing that, that's its primary function. So whilst what you need your liver to do whilst you're doing exercise is to produce glucose to give you the energy, but that will always come secondary whilst the liver is breaking down alcohol. So it's important to remember that your energy is going to be low, and if you're carrying sort of headaches and hangovers from the night before and you're dehydrated, your body's just going to slow down. And what that does, obviously, it slows down the messages, to your brain, your reactions. It might not be safe, and they're the sort of things we all know, the realities of alcohol consumption and what it does for us, and how we can sort of remove that and become better at what we do. But like I said, a little bit here and there, if that's what you do, I wouldn't beat yourself up too much, but just sort of curb it a little bit and make sure that you're not doing too much if performance is is your aim, if improving performance is your main aim. Of course, it is lockdown period. I think we've all probably consumed a tad bit more than we normally do. Bizarrely, by going to the shop, sometimes you might buy a little bit because we know we're not going to be able to meet up in the pub or do this or do that. So it might be there. It's just a case of just being careful, Like I say, I've abstained for a month at a time. Again, that works for targets. It works for planning. It all helps you kind of think about what you're doing and makes you more determined to do it. I find, but because I do like a drink, I do like socialising with my friends. When I take this kind of thing out, it makes me more determined to do well on the day, because then I've made that sacrifice. I've given up on some of the things I enjoy doing, so I'm even more determined, and I'll try even harder when I'm running. And perhaps that's just because I've got more energy, but you see where I'm going with that. It's definitely worth considering if performance is key. Of course, like I say, too much alcohol will make you put on weight, which is going to slow you down again, and it adds to poor muscle growth. It alters your heart rate, so it's not the answer. Like nutrition and food last week, it's key to sort of stick to the basics. We all know the basics, and we all know how much is good and how much is bad. So move on from that one. The next question, for someone looking to make positive change, what other resources would you recommend? So basically, we've obviously got DOdaily, and something I'm trying to do is make a positive change. So this is why I'm doing this. I'm trying something new. I'm trying a new hobby. So my first answer to that would be, try something you've always fancied doing. It might seem a bit out there. It might seem a bit bizarre. You'll have seen today, I'm not perfect at this. I'm not great. I'm struggling my way through it at times. But I'm getting there, I'm practicing. People are listening. I can see people watching now, and thank you to those. So it's just about getting out there, doing something different, And I know by the nature of the question, it was Ben again, as it is, probably looking for those new things. There's all sorts. I've been talking a lot about music I used to listen to, but now I've got the time, I can go back to that a little bit. So it's about doing those things. We all know how good music is. I watch so much more these days on the internet. Obviously getting into YouTube now, I look at other YouTube videos and YouTube sort of people doing things on there, and we joke about within the group. It was a topic of conversation in the WhatsApp group that sometimes when you're on YouTube, you go on these crazy YouTube tours. So you'll be watching something, and before you know it, you'll be onto something else. I found myself doing that last week, and I ended up sort of watching lots of stuff about where I live and what I do. I didn't expect to do that, but again, with what I do on a Friday, it's like a bit of a history lesson. I don't want to take up a new hobby because I've got enough as it is, but it was something I was interested in, and sometimes it's about time, isn't it? And what you can do with that, you can save sort of programs and download programs to watch whilst you're out, whilst you're sort of bored or not doing too much, or whilst you're sort of out in the park or enjoying the sun, as we have been. But there's a couple of specifics. Ben asked in particular about books and podcasts. There's lots of podcasts out there. You just have to type them in, and I'm not gonna tell you any particular podcast to listen to, because they're all slightly different. Just like this one is, it won't be for some, and but when it comes to books, there's a couple of running books. I've got a couple of here actually, and these are going to be part of the prizes in the challenge we're going to do next Wednesday. But these are really good books about running and mental health and therapy. This one, Running Cheaper Than Therapy, it's all in the title, but it's great little stories from joggers up to Olympic athletes. It's really, really, really good. I strongly advise that, and it's little snippets again. So during lockdown, when we need things to do to fill time, when we find a bit of a blank spot, it's perfect just to pick up, read a chapter and put down. And then Running for My Life. Again, it's along the similar lines, but the author was suffering from depression and looking for a bit of normality, and then took up running, and then gets into all the usual good habits, that come from that. So they're two good books. Like I say, listening to music, finding the right podcast. There's lots out there. You just have to type in a word. I'm a big football fan. I've got a couple of football podcasts I listen to every week, and I make time for those. We all sit down and watch the TV, but during this lockdown, what I find is I don't watch much of the TV. One of the most positive things to come out of all this is I don't watch much TV anymore. I watch a lot of sport when it's on, and that's going to be coming back, which Kay's not looking forward to, especially because the football's going to be on every day. But basically, it's about finding those different things, isn't it? Finding different things to do. And I hate putting the TV on now. I've got my little routines on a Saturday, like I say. I listen to the radio, I listen to music. I do a bit of time researching the podcast, researching this YouTube video with other podcasts and books. And I just try and sort of use those things and like I say, go on these little paths. It's about finding what works for you. It really works. What really works, and taking it and just running with it. Excuse the pun, but just taking it, go forward. Don't worry too much that you've not done it before. Just embrace the change. That's what I keep saying through all of this. Keep putting on activities. It's a change from the usual running groups. It's a different way of doing things. I'm doing the DOdaily. It's different to what I normally do. We're working with other sort of people in the way we conduct the community interest company, but it's just about taking new things on, taking it forward. One of the biggest things I do with this is, one of the biggest reasons I do this is to try and help people who are just thinking about activity, who are just cautious of their own sort of mental health. I don't want to be driving people to do too much too soon, and that's really key. I'm trying to offer a bit of a safe space here. So by advising people to do certain things, but not being too full on to say, do this, this, and this. And it's important to find what works for you. So sorry to be a bit vague with that. I could tell you endless things I've done and read, but I just think it's important to find what works for you. Me and Kate get up and listen to a local radio station on a Saturday. We might be a bit old before time, but it works for us. We enjoy it. We sit and relax, and we take that couple of hours just to do what we want, and that's what it's about. It's about doing what you want, but embracing the change that comes with it. So that's all I'm going to say on that one. I got one more question today. Comes from Dawn. Thank you, Dawn. What advice would you give to somebody who can run 5 miles? Who can walk 5 miles, but would like to sort of build on that and progress into running and take running up? The person in particular who she's speaking about is a little bit nervous about running and actually taking those first steps into getting involved. What I will say, sort of first of all, is what the person would need to do is address the issue that's stopping them. So, for example, if it's when I started, it was all about weight loss, and it was all about wanting to lose weight and how could I do that? I'm talking about this kind of thing in reverse somewhat, because I couldn't just lose weight just like that, and I was scared to do it a little bit. So I had to find ways of doing it. I spoke last week about making 3 positive changes in my diet. Then that worked to some degree, but then I had to lose more weight, so I took up running. But what I'm trying to get to almost is, whatever the problem is, you need to find a way to address that. So if for example, the issue is weight stopping the person walking, then just just keep walking, keep doing those things to knock that weight off. I'm not saying you can't start running, but the more you do it, the more confident you get at that actual activity. It's still exercise, it's still working, it's still sort of getting yourself out in the fresh air, building up. You can still work to targets and plan these things in. Of course, from that, there are such things as online apps that do couch to 5K and stuff online. So why is that? I think personally that coaching people and being in a running group is a fantastic way of progressing. I totally appreciate that's not for all, and people might not want to just stick on the trainers and go out for a run, especially if they're not used to it and they're not confident in doing that. So there's apps where you can put your headphones in and it tells you how long to walk for. You could go find a space in a big open field and just do it on your own. Of course, by being outside, I appreciate that people will still be conscious of people looking in, but it's a case of sort of, like I say, finding that space. And if you're far enough away from people, you won't hear what they've got to say, or if that's what you're worried about, and it's about being determined enough to do what you need to do. I was really conscious about running. When I started, I was a lot bigger than I am now, and I used to run along a busy main road because it's the only way I could really go, and I was really conscious of people looking at me and watching me. But after a few times, it's like anything, you get used to it and you realise that you're making the positive change for you, and it doesn't matter what anybody else is thinking, But like I say, if you are really conscious, find these apps online. Of course, I've got a Couch to 5K program you can follow, which has been extended, which I've done for a group locally. That's been extended. So normally a Couch to 5K would be 8 weeks, and I've extended the course to a 12-week course. Couch to 5K in 5 weeks is really manageable. But by doing it over 12, what I'm looking to do is help people who are lacking in confidence a little bit, really worried about what they're doing. So it's a way of sort of building up that little bit slower. If you've not got an event or any aspirations to sort of be at a time or do this, if it's just a case of getting into running, you've got all the time in the world. It's never too late to get involved. 5 years ago, I was feeling really old and past it, and I'm not particularly old now, but I felt really really conscious of my age. I felt lethargic, obviously with all the weight, it was bringing me down, but I had to take those steps. I had to man up a little bit and sort of battle those demons and not be too concerned what people was thinking. I think we're living in a world these days where people looking at people taking up exercise and making these changes where it's becoming more and more normal and natural to see, and people are getting inspired by it. Again, something like what I'm doing. There'll be people watching this saying it's absolutely rubbish. Probably is absolutely rubbish, but I'm trying, I'm trying to do something. I'm putting myself out there. It's difficult at times, but that's just the way it is. And I make mistakes. You'll make mistakes, you'll have your bad days, your good days. I say this to all the beginners. I've got a City Slickers group we run on a Tuesday. I've mentioned it quite a lot, where we all run together. I'm really trying to drill into that group. It's always about the beginner. It's always about that person who's just come along. With that group in particular, there's other groups where we run a bit more at our own pace, still got that great spirit. But with that group, it's always about the slowest person. And that's not, slow's the wrong word, but it's about the beginner. That it's key to make them feel confident, make them feel part of something. Know that a dozen, 14, 15 people are all there to help and support and encourage. And that's what we try to do through sort of DOdaily and DOdaily as well. This is what I want to open the group up to say there's lots of encouragement within this community to keep looking in, keep watching what we're doing, keep taking bits of advice. I said right at the start of this video today, I'm no expert in any of these things, but people have had to speak to me. I keep saying to people now everybody's starting to struggle a little bit. Just keep listening to people. When we get a bit fed up, we tend to switch off. We tend to zone out a little bit. But keep listening. If people are talking to you and trying to advise you, they want good things. I work with Get Out, Get Active, Nottingham, and they've created a Stay Safe, Stay Active campaign, and they work with lots and lots of great partners doing different activities. So I can post a link up as well to their sort of Facebook page. There's different activities. If just going back to Dawn's question about the nervousness around running, if if the demons are that much, try something else. Try a small group, try a group aimed at certain ages or certain people. Again, I'm not a massive fan of that because I like to treat everybody exactly the same, but it's what works for you, and that's the recurring theme here, isn't it? It's whatever works for you. So hopefully that helps today. Like I say, there's lots more to it. I'm going to post up a couple of links I've in the comments, like I always do, where I've done a bit of research on the questions, and hopefully that'll tell you a bit more. Might be a bit more articulate than I can put it together, but for now, that's just a little bit to go at. Hope you've enjoyed it today. Please comment and like if you have. Got a lovely comment just before I came on today about what I do on a Friday morning, and it's got somebody up and walking. So they told me that they've been walking or running at least 3 out of the 4 days this week. And on the other, they've been doing yoga. They've been struggling to get up and struggling to, and just starting to feel the pinch like a lot of us have. I spoke about my little wobble last week, and I'm noticing it with others. But they're just starting to feel that. And I got a message saying that the Friday morning thing has really done the trick. So if you can tune into that, I like to get out and about in Nottingham, do different things, walk somewhere different. Taking the views, taking the sunrise, it's amazing, and it's really set me up for the day. And again, I get into these YouTube searches when I come home because I start looking things up and reading about things. But it's all great stuff. It's all opening up my horizons to new things. So, like I say, if you like what we do, keep watching, subscribe, and tune in tomorrow. I'll be back at 7 a.m. Finish off the week in a positive frame of mind. Felt much better since Monday as the week's gone on. I felt much better, and I really, really look forward to the Friday Do Daily. Let's attack the weekend and then see where we go next week. Of course, I'll have the Saturday selfie challenge. Till then, just doing it.